evil barons and their serfs. The democratic theory of government and of life in a democracy opposes one-man rule and holds to the belief that the individual controls his government through active participation in the process of political democratic government, but bows to the will of the majority, freely expressed. The motivating force of the theory of a democratic way of life is still a belief that as individuals we live cooperatively and, to the best of our ability, serve the community in which we live, and that our own success, to be real, must contribute to the success of others. I think this belief can be more firmly grounded through a study of the past, and the principles on which we are now charting our future course can be more clearly defined through a better understanding of the development of democracy in other countries and eventually in our own. Therefore, very briefly, we will take a look back into the past. 2. Up to the year 1500, there is little or no evidence that anybody gave any thought whatever to the theories of democracy, but certain basic acts paved the way for the development of practical and theoretical democracy. The Magna Carta was the first document drawn up on the theory of democracy, and many of its provisions are now of no more than historical interest. There are, however, many articles which are of continuing importance and current interest. For instance, no taxes shall be imposed except by common counsel. No man shall be imprisoned, exiled, or destroyed except by the lawful judgment of his peers or by the law of the land. To no one is right or justice sold or refused. All persons except outlaws or prisoners are free to come and go, free to buy and to sell, except in time of war. One of the most important provisions in the Magna Carta is that the English Church shall be free, and shall have her rights entire and her liberties inviolate. Many of the articles in it were directed against the abuses of the power of the king, and against many grievances which existed because of feudal tenures. In 1628, a Petition of Rights was signed, and in 1689, a Bill of Rights was signed. From 1500 to 1700 in Europe, the development was very slow, but the idea of democracy seemed to be steadily germinating. By 1750, the idea was firmly implanted in the minds of certain radical thinkers. Radical, of course, for their period. The first real growing pains of democracy might be considered to spring from English oppression, primarily oppression of religious minority groups, which forced certain free thinkers in England to take refuge first in Holland, which was a tolerant country, but where life was none too easy, and later in the New World across the sea. This land was talked about as the place where one could carve out a future according to new liberal ideas, even though one still owed allegiance to the King of England. These daring and adventurous souls decided to embark upon new careers with no idea of what awaited them. These Brownists, who later were known as Pilgrims, were only one group of the many people who suffered persecution in Europe in the 17th century during the general wave of intolerance that brought about the democratic results. In England, Catholics had been harassed by Thomas Cromwell and Protestants by Mary Tudor. From 1629 to 1640, Puritan and Catholic families fled to America, and when the Stuarts were restored in 1660, the exodus was renewed, with such sects as the Quakers joining the emigration. It is interesting to us, in our study of our Mayflower ancestors, to realize what a long way they had to go before they could come to the crystallization of the democratic theory through the Declaration.